Today, I'm going to be reviewing every book that I read in 2022. The first one in no particular order is Your Brain on Porn. Your Brain on Porn is a book researched and developed by author Gary Wilson as he goes on to describe the myriad and number of ways in which pornography can and will destroy your life if you let it. It starts with everything such as numb dopamine receptors, which in simple words means that normal everyday things become much more boring for you. So taking a walk, reading a book, or even having a regular conversation with no screens, kind of the opposite of what I'm doing right now. And just normal everyday things that a human being should do become a lot more boring than they should be. And another one that's really bad for some men is erectile dysfunction. Yeah, it doesn't discriminate whether you're old or whether you're young. I can't say I've experienced it. I might experience things similar to it, but I don't think I've experienced it. And while I like to say porn is bad for men and women, I can't say how it affects women in particular, because one, this is all aimed towards guys, and I'd be a fraud if I'd say, oh, this is how it affects women, when clearly I'm not a woman. I want to keep this for the guys, because that's what I am. That's all I know. That's all I've been known. That's all I ever will know. I can understand girls as much as I want, but I'm a guy at heart. Come on now. If you sincerely take anything from this video, like above everything else, even above the point of reading, quit porn as fast and as much as you can. Peace be with you. The second book, which isn't even at my house or in my hands, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. For those of you wondering where that book is, I know exactly where it is. It's at one of my good friends' house, actually one of my best friends. And there's a good chance that he's going to watch this video, because not only is he sub, but he weekly watches these videos or whenever they come out. And if you're watching this, read the book, dummy. You've had it for long enough, and put it to good use, man. I feel like everyone could just use that book, you know. It's a light tongue-in-cheek, like, keep the book, but read the book. It's such a good book. That's why I gave it to him in the first place, bro. But anyways, Dale Carnegie's book is a simple and straight to the point type of book that any and every human being with eyes and a functioning brain should read. Basic rule/principle that every chapter in this book follows is that you should always focus on the person in front of you, focus on their best well needs, and essentially it's the principle of put someone else before yourself. Or I know there's the Bible version, which I'm forgetting right now, someone can probably quote it for me, but essentially do unto others how you want to be treated, and you know, focus on the other person first before yourself. Even I, towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, forgot that same principle with some of my best friends and editors. Also, if you're wondering why I may or may not sound quieter than usual, it's because it's like almost 6 a.m. I started recording this till about like 5:30, I think, and let's just say everyone in my house is asleep, so I'm still trying to make this and be on my grind, but bear with me. So in conversations with people that you want to be friends with, get to know better, or whether it's for business, focus and see things from their perspective, act from them, think, how would I truly feel, like, you know, if I talk to them, if I was being talked to the way I'm talking to them, how they doing, open up, like, truly, and hear them out if they do open up to you. But do you remember, and even Dale Carnegie says this many times in the book, it has to be genuine. It can't be this, oh, I'm gonna listen to you, I'm gonna do this thing for you with the ulterior motive of I'm gonna get something in return. Because trust me, people can see straight through that. They'll know whether you truly care or whether you're full of crap. So choices are yours, like they said in the Boondocks.
Now we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours. Chris Hansen.
Chris Hansen.
Someone get this guy up.
Don't make me ruin that bike. No, Chris, I'm a warrior.
The third self-help book on this list, which there are a decent amount of, is The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. Like the book before it, Mr. Peale's book, The Power of Positive Thinking, just like How to Win Friends and Influence People, is old. Like, I'm talking about 60s, 70s. So don't let the old style King James type of language deter you from reading what are very great books. And also, for all I know, I could just be talking my ass with the dates, but bear with it. And did I say dates? I meant like the decades. And also, there are Bible verses and teachings scattered all over, but don't let that deter you also. Just like the old style language, don't let that deter you from what are great books, because sometimes the Bible just has the best answers. I might be biased because, I'm a Christian Seventh-day Adventist, but it's true. And these books have stood the test of time, so what more can I say? The core of this book is so strong that I can confidently say that whoever is watching this, or whoever doesn't watch this, that reads this book right here, I promise you, if you seriously read it, emulate it, understand it, and just embody it as a whole as much as you can for a good amount of time, your life will become so much more better in ways that whether you see it or whether you see it will become so much better than you understand. To sum this book up, you can pretty much brainwash yourself to become positive, necessarily, not all the time. That is a sickness. The first of two religious books in this entire list is a book called The Great Controversy by Ellen G. White. To give those of y'all that are watching context that may or may not know, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I briefly skimmed over this in my Hamza video, but it's a branch of Christianity which we believe that the true Sabbath is on Saturday as opposed to Sunday. We have other things as well, like there's a certain amount of animals that we can't eat, with wings, scales, land animals, this, that, the other, and certain teachings, we don't believe that you automatically go to heaven straight after death, and a couple other things, but that's about the rough gist of it. For my Seventh-day Adventist Christians and anyone interested in religion and theology, this book is amazing and will do wonders for you. And this book will be amazing for those of you that read it because it'll go through the history and persecution of the Seventh-day Adventists from, I think the formation of the church or slightly after till the current day and in the future. I'm talking about way past than what we are at now, and essentially what happens to the Seventh-day Adventists and how they move forward. The only thing that might deter people from reading this book, apart from it being a religious book, is that even though it has 432 pages of main content in here, the font is so packed and so small that it's the equivalent of reading an 800 to 900 page book. And if you don't believe me, boom, I don't really even know what I'm showing you right now, but I'm assuming it shows my point in focus. The main getaway from this book is that Seventh-day Adventists thrived best under persecution because it helped not only strengthen their faith, but it also helped them build that relationship if they didn't have it, and strengthen their relationship with the Father. And the same can be said for the opposite. Like right now, when we're faced with such prosperous times in first world countries like Australia, the UK, America, this, that, the other, that you wouldn't need to have a good relationship with your Father. You wouldn't need to, read your Bible. You wouldn't need to study. You wouldn't need to try to be a better Christian person. You wouldn't need to have faith because, if your life is all sorted, you got your own money in check, everything's coming through consistently, nothing's going wrong. What would you need that relationship for? Which is why you do need that relationship and that faith more than ever now, I promise you. The second and last religious book that I read in 2022 was, surprise, surprise, another Ellen G. White book, Messages to Young People. The funny thing is that even though this book has 150 plus chapters and 34 more pages than the book before it, The Great Controversy, it was somehow an easier and more gentler read, because if you can't tell already by me flipping through random pages, that the font is bigger, much more readable, and there's a lot less content per se. The chapters and lessons are direct with the name of this book, such as marriage, clothing, entertainment, work, and faith. I would actually recommend this book to unbelievers / people of other religions as well, because one, I feel like I just said, it's an easy read, and imagine the practical parts of the Bible condensed into 466 pages worth of content that you could probably read, if you're a fast reader, a week. If you're more average, slower reader, then like 2-3 weeks. And you could take that and apply it into your day-to-day life, and it would still benefit you regardless whether you're a 7-day Adventist, whether you're not, whether you're Christian, whether you're not, and just help better your life. Definitely cannot recommend this book any more than I have now. The last self-help book I'm going to be talking about in this video is the biggest one. Maybe not the biggest one literally, but definitely one of the biggest self-help books around. The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. I would be surprised if I knew a person in self-development didn't know what that book was, because this, How to Win Friends and Influence People and Subtle Art of Not Caring. But this is going to be in 2023. Like the roundup year, like the trinity when it comes to like self-help books. So if you haven't heard of this, get on it. This book is the definition of work harder, not smarter. Timothy Ferriss goes on to mention how you can get the majority of your main work done by batching it and doing it all in one go, so that you have a bunch of content left over, and that, you know, you do that and then you outsource all the unimportant parts that you don't really need to be there to do, such as, you know, editing, logo making, thumbnail if you're a YouTuber, like all little bits and details that aren't considered work, and toss them over to someone else who can do it better and faster than you, and there you go, make a better product. The best thing about this book are the huge amounts of resources that Timothy Ferriss provides all of the course of this book, from websites, diagrams, and explanations. This ranges from websites to where you can contact celebrities and start your own business, like, you know, and trademark your own businesses, to diagrams of business models and explanations of those and everything else. Even though I don't have a typical business, if you exclude YouTube, the things in this book have helped skyrocket my productivity throughout the course of last year, floating into this year. And this goes for things such as batching work together and the low information diet. Anyone looking to start a business or further their own, and also on top of that, skyrocket their productivity, read this book ASAP. Read it. I'm serious. Read it. Every book I'm talking about right now. Read it. And we got the longest part of this entire review till now. The funny thing is, the last book on here is an autobiography, and not of anyone, but of Steve Jobs, the man himself, the reason why I have the editors and the simpleness right here, the iPhone. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. I've always been curious about Steve Jobs, you know, ever since, you know, iPhone, iPad, this, that came out, Mac, I was about to say iMac, but ever since all those things came out. But within the last 2 years, I've taken a more active approach and more active curiosity towards him, and this has been in the form of YouTube videos that I've watched here and there, speeches, things that he did, reading articles on YouTube about how he's inspired and motivated people to do great things, watching the Steve Jobs movie, I think it's the 2016 version, it's either 2015 or 2016 version, which is based on part of this. Then I was like, you know what, if I watched the movie, then let me read the book, which is the first time I've ever done that, but it was so worth it. Out of everything on this list, this book took me the longest to read, like it's literally the biggest, like physically and with the amount of text, you know, and how small the font is all over, 526 pages to be exact, and so much. It took me months and months to read. I'm talking about, I think I started reading this it was around July to September last year, and I didn't finish reading this till early January. Like, I'm literally talking about like 4 or 5 days before I started recording this. That's how recent this is. If you want to count excuses and, you know, have sympathy on me, which don't, I was reading Goodnight Pun Pun for 3 to 4 months towards the end of last year, so that might have had a factor in it. But also, there were just days where I was lazy or didn't read at all, and that's completely on me. I take responsibility for that, but I am glad that I got to finish it now. And even though I finished it in 2023, I read a good amount, and the vast majority in 2022, so I'm counting it. This is my list, suck it. What I love about this book is how in depth Mr. Walter goes into the good traits of Steve Jobs, which helped him make Apple the either trillion or multi-trillion company that it is. Literally the biggest company ever. Helped develop great products such as, the iPhone, not the modern day version, the iPad, the iPod, the originals, Nanos, this, that, the other. He even helped form Next. He was part of the reason why Pixar started to boom. Whatever you name it, this man did it. Computer, music, artistry, he put that all in one. And the good thing is that Mr. Walter also goes on to detail the bad traits of Steve Jobs, the traits that if any regular human being on the street had, including myself, you would get sent to the hospital every day and get spat on by your nurses, because that's how bad this was. I'm talking about like brutal honesty. I'm not talking about like, oh, I don't care about your feelings. I'm talking about like Steve Jobs had such a binary way of looking at the world that if he really liked something, he said it was awesome and the person was a hero, and if it was terrible, he would be like, this is shit, get rid of it, do it again. That's literally how he saw the world. There was no in between. It was either amazing and the best thing I've ever seen, or horrible garbage and burn it in a dumpster fire. My favorite parts of this book are how detail oriented Steve Jobs is and his reality distortion field. To explain his reality distortion field, it's essentially whenever he has a problem within his company, whatever company he was working at, mainly Apple, if someone would be like, hey, for example, the Gorilla Glass we all come to know and love on these phones. I hope they're still using it, because otherwise I'll just butcher that. But let's say Gorilla Glass, for I think it was the iPhone, original iPhone, or like iPhone 3, iPhone 4, and essentially the guy who was making it was like, yo, I know we told you we could make it, but we can't mass manufacture it and then also ship it just before you need to release it. And Steve Jobs, if I remember correctly, I read this on an article, so seeing the book was crazy, but Steve Jobs pretty much told the guy who's making it, is like, don't worry, don't be scared, you can do it. And then he's like, what? I'm not scared. And then he's like, and then he proceeded to tell him the problem again, and Steve Jobs was like, don't be scared, try again. And he's like, don't be scared, try again. And that's probably the most purest form of this reality distortion field. I mean, the more aggressive moments, but that's what it came down to. Pretty much whenever he had a problem, he'll just ignore it, turn the other way, look at the positive, and like, in a sense, in the most delusional sense possible, hence the name reality distortion field. And the funny thing is, a vast majority amount of times when it came to products, his reality distortion field came in clutch more than it didn't. The only times it didn't was when Apple had to release things by a certain date and they didn't. But in terms of the actual product and getting the equipment he needed and making it how he liked, he did it. And so many people that worked at Apple or any other company under him, which the reality distortion field was present, proceeded to say that even though in the moment it was absolute hell and they hated that, they said after the fact and looking back on it, they said it was the best thing that could have ever happened to them, because in him enforcing the reality distortion field and telling them that they can do what they're literally telling him is impossible, like, you cannot do this, like, logically we cannot ever do this, not in a million years we can ever do this. It helped them to achieve what they never believed that they could do, and essentially broaden their horizons and show them that to toss out whatever they think is impossible and just go at it full force, 150, 200%. As for his attention to detail, it was so insane that the people that were working with him at Apple, the manufacturers and the employees who were making the software, were telling him that he was so insane to the point where the things he would worry and care about were things that no rational human being would ever care about nor notice themselves, such as the way a screen looked on a phone, the way the case looked, the insides of the computer that no one else would see but the manufacturers and himself, or anything else like that. Like, it was things like that he said. And I remember, I'm pretty sure he got this from his stepdad. If you didn't know, he was adopted, and he's got the sense of pride of wanting to make both the inside and the outside of whatever he made look great. And I remember he stated something in the book that it doesn't matter if the consumer or whoever else is getting this can't see the inside. He's like, but like, if you take pride and you have self-respect as someone who creates something, that even in the things that no one can see, it's up to you to make it as best and possible as you can. Make it as beautiful as it is on the outside as it is on the inside. And this hit hard for me because I realized that when I read this partway last year, that there were things I skimped out on videos, whether I was like, these edits are kind of alright, but I let them slide, or volume control from my editors, or even when I'm writing the scripts. And there were times where I was like, I could have just went back and changed like the entire paragraph just to make a better one, but I didn't want to put in twice the amount of effort because I was like, I already spent this long, and I was like, I want to pump out more. But the thing is like, if I did that tiny bit of effort, sure, in the grand scheme of things, it's tiny, it spends a lot of time, but it's like, even if it doesn't produce results, which it will, but even if it doesn't produce results, it's like, you as a creator should know in your heart that that'll be the best thing for you. It'll be the best thing for the person watching, and that it'll fill that hole, and it'll give you that self-respect feeling of, I gave this 500% of, myself. This is my everything, and I know I can truly say, I did this. And that's like with the last, I think 4 or 5 videos I posted, pretty much from 3 Idiots onwards on my channel, that these videos I've taken so much pride in, from the thumbnails to the scripts to redoing them. And I've learned to do that with the last 2-3 videos, and I'm pretty sure to whoever's editing this, I think it'll be Obswerve. You can put your details on the screen, but essentially, and he might show you a little snippet, but there'll be times as I'm recording where I'm like, I don't like that take, and I'll redo an entire paragraph or an entire section just to be just to make that initially better than it was. Flashback. Your brain on porn is, let's redo that part. Focus on the other person in front of you. I'm gonna redo that part again. Like the book before it, Norman Vincent Peale's, I'm gonna do that part again. Like the book before it, Norman Vincent, I'm gonna redo that part again. Shit. I'm gonna redo that part again. Only thing that might slightly deter people from reading this, apart from it being a religious book, because religion gets shunned like a mother. We're gonna redo that part again. Now sometimes I might slide in ums, ahs, or pauses, but that's just to make the video itself feel human and not like I'm just here yes, and today we are here by Now this script and video ended up being a lot longer than I expected it to be. However, I'm okay with that because I truly and really do believe that every human being on this planet should read books, whether it be science fiction, manga, autobiographies such as this one, self-help books, or anything else under the sun, even children books. Just read books. There's so much better of a way of gathering knowledge, information, passing the time, and also it's a million times better than just mindlessly scrolling on your phone like a retard and being like and getting mass amounts of dopamine for doing nothing and frying your brain in the long run. Seriously, if you care about yourself, replace the vast amount of your scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, playing video games on your phone. If you do whatever it is, and just replace that with reading a good old-fashioned book. Thank you to everyone who's watched up until this point, and I'm gonna catch you later. We're gonna redo that part again.